Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to another great webinar brought to you by Healthy Seas. Today we are talking about designing for the planet with Object, Carpet and ECONYL. I will introduce you to our amazing guests in a minute. And just to say, you are so welcome here. Thanks for joining us. I know there's a lot of competition for your time, and I'm sure you're all working very, very hard. We just all had a conversation about everyone's small children being taken out of the house while they do this webinar. So a particular shout out to the parents of young children out there. You're heroes. We'd love to hear from you today. So you'll see the question box, the chat box. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. We'd love to know about your favorite bits of circular design, eco design, sustainable design, and we would love your questions. In fact, our panelists invite your questions. So the next 45 minutes or so is the time to learn everything you always wanted to know about design that prioritizes ecosystems. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you use it? How do you make it? What are the materials? So we're going to talk about real circularity as opposed to fake circularity. Maybe we can discuss that more. And we're going to talk about a paradigm shift in designing services, products, buildings, everything that has to deliver on both aesthetic, ethics, and particularly on environmental ethics. So welcome. This is very exciting, isn't it? I'm going to introduce you to Daniel and Martina, our panelists, in a second. But first, we're going to hear from Jenny Ianu from Healthy Seas, who's going to tell you a little bit about Healthy Seas and how this all fits together. So Jenny, over to you.
Today we're having a very special discussion about sustainability and circular economy, and we're really happy that Daniel, Martina, and you, Lucy, have joined us today. For those of you who don't know, Aquafil, the maker of ECONYL yarn, is one of our founding partners, and Object Carpet is an associate partner member of Healthy Seas since early 2019. Healthy Seas is a best practice example for the circular economy, highlighting that waste is too valuable to be wasted. What we would like everyone following us today to take away from this webinar is that collaboration is key to achieving sustainability goals. Building partnership models which are long-lasting, scalable, and transformative, and which create shared value will be key for a sustainable and healthy future. From our start in 2013, 75 sustainable businesses have joined us as partners. Healthy Seas partners contribute to our success by funding our projects and taking action. They help us realize our action plans for cleaner seas, wildlife protection, and the recycling of valuable resources. Now, a quick update regarding our environmental work. Our diving projects are in full speed since May, which was a dream come true after the lockdown. Last weekend, 3 different diving projects took place, and we're now preparing for our first main event in Kefalonia, Greece, happening at the end of this week. Since we cannot invite everyone to be part of these unique events, we hope that this digital approach and our Healthy Seas web labs will offer our attendees today some vitamin C. Thank you and good luck.
Of getting some vitamin C from this webinar. I'm sure you'll get much more than that as well. So let me introduce our panelists. I'm going to introduce myself as well because I realized I didn't even tell you my name. My name's Lucy Siegle and I'm an environmental journalist, and I am absolutely obsessed with sustainable design, eco design, and real circularity. I'm also the chair of the Real Circularity Coalition, but it's not about me. Let me introduce you to Daniel. Give us a wave, please, Daniel. I think we can identify you. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about you. Daniel has been the owner and CEO of Object Carpet since 2006, but Object Carpet has been in existence since 1972, which makes it even older than me, believe it or not. And for all that time, Object Carpet has been at the forefront of quality, design, and innovation in the commercial property sector. A sense of aesthetic and colour in combination with advanced production techniques results in elegant designs in the form of wall-to-wall carpets, acoustic carpet tiles and rugs. There's over 1,200 styles and colours, and then there's customised products as well. So an awful lot of experience there, and also some very kind of exciting things on the horizon. And I know that Object Carpet has a new has set new architectural standards, which I hope Daniel will also talk to us about. So welcome to Daniel. And then we also have, I'm delighted to tell you, Martina Santoni. Give us a wave, Martina. Hello, you're very welcome today. Now, Martina supports Aquafil customers and partners in the promotion and communication of the ECONYL brand. And I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more about ECONYL, but if you don't know, and I bet you do, ECONYL regenerated nylon is a product that can help you close the loop, as you heard a little bit about from Jenny as well. We're all about closing the loop. Nylon waste from landfills and oceans around the world is transformed into ECONYL regenerated nylon, and it's exactly the same as brand new nylon, and it can be recycled, recreated, and remolded again and again and again. So we look forward to hearing not just about ECONYL from Martina, but also about her views on design. And we're also going to talk about terms in design. When is something eco-design? When is it sustainable design? When is it circular? So, you know, a 101 on eco-design and designing for the planet. Okay, so let's start. And Daniel, I'd like to hear a little bit about your personal ethos, why you feel so connected to the planet, and why designing in this way is important to you.
Good question, Lucy. For sure, I think Standard, we have to take responsibility today for our next generations. As I just told you before we started, I have 2 kids, so next generation really counts, and not only that generation, also the ones afterwards. And it starts with developing products today which will fulfill the requirements for future recycling. Even so, if it is in our DNA since the beginning, we are a family company and we always had design and sustainability and health in our genes. But like 5 years ago, we did a sustainability workshop with our leaders, and there we decided to change our portfolio completely to 100% recycled and recyclable products within the next 10 years. So it's 5 years ago. We already did a lot in the last 5 years. And it's not only the products, it's a holistic approach throughout the whole company. And it's important to have that kind of partners like Aquafil and Healthy Seas to get that vision to reality.
How do you keep pushing forwards when you are in an established company and an established family company, when you already have an innovation badge and people already know that you do, you know, good things? How do you focus on pushing forwards? Because it would be easy to kind of stay where you are in a way.
For sure, it's easier to stay where you are, but it's important always to develop yourself and let's say it differently. I saw the vision of Giulio Bonazzi, who already did years ago a mind change in developing a product which comes from the oil industry to a really sustainable product. And we love that idea so much. And as we followed the approach as well, that we wanted to change completely the company to be really sustainable and a healthy company.
Great. So now we know that you were so inspired by one of your partners from ECONYL Aquafil. That's a good point to come to you, Martina. And I'd also like to ask you the same question about your personal motivation.
Yes, actually, I think that my motivation comes from the status of the world nowadays. because yes, very hot topics are marine litter, the environmental benefits, but I think that also the world itself has changed a lot during the, let's say, 5-6 years, especially when you talk about sustainable products available on the market. Try to think about, I always make this example with my friends. I cannot with my child, it's too small, but yes, with my friends, very often we arrive on this topic. And try to think about 5 years ago when, yes, you started hear the word sustainable, the topic of environmental issues and stuff like that. But when you went into the shop and asked for sustainable products, they proposed you when talking about design, for example, they propose you a very bad thing made of old object put together with the art of bricolage, for example. Well, that object for sure was sustainable, but let's say the truth, it was not fashionable and good looking at all. Luckily, nowadays, things has changed a lot. And if you go to the shop and you ask for a sustainable product, you have a lot of options. And thanks God, you can choose and pick what you want, feeling more, let's say, that you have made something good for the planet, but for real.
Aesthetic, and you're so right, because if something's not desirable, useful, necessary, if it doesn't tick one of those boxes, then surely it's a waste of resources. I'd just like to say hi to everybody who's joining us again, and we've got people here from the Azores, from the Maldives, from Italy, from Germany, from Boston. This is great. And we've also, which I also think is a brilliant thing about designers, we already have people who are advertising their wares, because you also got to sell and make a noise about your own product. So that's really good. Oh, and Slovenia as well, and Canada. Keep your questions coming. And when we've got so many people from so many different places, I think it's a real opportunity to kind of see if we can come up with how standardized are these definitions? Are we all talking about the same thing? So I'd like to come back to you, Martina, because I know that you have a particular point of view on this. What is for you the difference between eco-design and sustainable design? Spell it out for us. And why is that important?
Yes, thank you. It is a great opportunity, yes, because I know there is a big confusion in the industry, and it's easy to mix up things together. Well, with sustainable design is a common word that everybody is using for defining a product which is identified as sustainable, but you really don't know where it comes from, the ingredients used to produce that, and it's only claimed to be actually. When we say and we talk about eco-design, we mean that for the production process of that particular object, the product, designers and architects really has focused on the early phase of the design process, the phase where they have to choose the ingredients to be used in the production. That's really makes the difference, because they need to invest money, efforts in that particular phase in order to think about the final, the end of the usage of the product, so that at the end of the life, the product could be, first of all, disassembled in different components, but each material could be recycled again, again, and again.
Do you agree? Is that also your definition?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the most important thing now to design products for the future recycling, because the integrates you use are are later key for the process. So if you now design the products right, you can reuse them later on, or the materials reuse them later on. If you don't do that, it's quite difficult after the lifetime of 10, 15 years of a carpet to reuse that.
how you work and what the process is, because you're also working with architects and specifiers, and you showed me a magazine cover just before we started this broadcast. I don't know if you still have it there, but you can show us and tell us a little bit about this project. How do you embed eco-design and these principles into a building, for example? And how early on do you start thinking, or do you persuade architects and specifiers to start thinking about the materials and the end of life of the materials that they use?
The earlier you think about it as well on the product development, as well in the building development, about sustainability, the better you can fulfill the approach. So when we design new products, we always talk to different partners as well. Not only that we design it for ourselves, we have a close cooperation and exchange with Aquafil, what they need to recycle the product afterwards. And we also work with institutes and other companies to get like the newest possibilities to don't use any harmful materials, and to go to a mono product to fulfill it, to recycle it 100%. When you come to the building, yes, I showed you this picture before. We are right now quite often in the news with our new headquarters. Also there, we started 5 years before we are now moved into it, to plan it. And there was, in the beginning of the process, always like 3 things which in every decision were part. Is like design, the second one was sustainability, and the third one was health. So we are now living in a building which is practically having no energy from external. We use the heat and the cold from the earth, have solar panels on the roof to get the pumps running. So there's a lot of things, even where you can go in details. Even so, we planted like flowers for bees, and using bees on the roof to produce our own honey and things like that. So there are like a lot of details which you plan in the beginning to get it in the end a sustainable and healthy product. As well, sourcing locally and sourcing products which are recycled, and especially as well which don't have any emissions. That was important in each process when we planned the project.
Designers or architects which do not cover the cost of the environmental impact because it's externalized. So to buy the things that do make a difference and to specify the things that do make a difference is much more expensive, isn't it?
Yes, in the first point, it's more expensive. That's still right, and it's a decision the consumer or the owner, in this case of a building, has to find that he wants to go sustainable, and it's an investment in the beginning, but on the long term, it's always valuable. And I think it's the only thing you can do right now to build a new project on a sustainable way for the next generations. It's key.
On that, how do we shift to a more long-term approach where we're not so obsessed with the immediate cost of potentially more expensive materials?
Yeah, actually, I think that the price and the poor availability of sustainable products were barriers for past generation. I mean, in the consumer journey. Nowadays, the barriers are different. And I think about, for example, well, this is the first one, actually, lack of information, lack of awareness, of course, also habits, of course, and sometimes, yes, luck, which is not our case, because actually maybe we will tell later, but sometimes also the lack of functionality and quality sometimes could be a barrier for this generation consumers, I mean, yeah.
Say, if anyone is having problems accessing this webinar, it sometimes works better on a phone. So do try and come back in again. If you do miss anything, we are recording this. I know it's not ideal, but we will get it to you in some format. Martina, one of the questions that we've had so far is about the design process. And I hear this a lot. We have to change the design process from the outset. We have to design for recycling, as you've already discussed. But we also have to change some part of design education, don't we? How do we change the design process so that these values and protocols are embedded?
Yes, Lucy, actually you touched the three main points, in my opinion, for, let's say, changing the world or changing our approach to design, because this is possible only with education, legislation, and yes, eco-design. Luckily in Europe, but I think that this is starting all over the world, we are, and I'm talking about the legislation standpoint and the politician, let's say, rules, we are trying to approach this topic, because recently also the president of the European Commission said that we only with legislation we can try to approach this problem, let's say. And she said that actually Europe needs to move towards a zero pollution ambition, and a new circular economy action plan focusing on sustainable resources use, especially in resource intensive and high impact sectors such as textile and constructions. So really, I think that we hit the point, and we are trying to change things, actually.
So do you think we're at a sort of crossroads where we have an opportunity to go one way, or we always have an opportunity to go back and do things badly?
Yes, our decision, I mean, final consumer's decision. But I think that we can see how habits are changing. When I go to a shop, I ask myself where this product is coming from. I check the labels. I became more wiser, let's say, yes, and more sensitive. So yes, it's our decision at this cross to decide where to go.
Daniel, we hear a lot about circular economy and how we're on a journey towards circular economy. From your perspective, where are we on that journey, and are we getting closer?
I think we're still at the beginning, but the awareness is getting higher and higher, and that's what we have to work on it. Because if you have the awareness, then on the other hand, the people will request more that kind of products. So, and from the industry side, they must give more transparency, I guess. On their products, and this should be also a point from the legislation, which we should get some laws that you have to really be transparent what is integrated in your product. And I think we're right now, because you just asked Lucy as well, you asked Martina if we are on crossroads. Yeah, I think Corona is something where we are on crossroads. People change their mindset right now, and they're coming more back to think locally. And you see the limits of globalization, and this could help a lot in doing the next steps towards sustainable and eco design products as well.
now, because you mentioned it in your first answer. Could you unwrap a little bit why a local system is beneficial for eco-design or circular economy? Why is it? Is it to do with chain of custody? What is it to do with?
I think if you source locally, you have a better relation and a closer relation to your partners as well. You better know what they are using. You don't have to transport the goods like several times around the globe, because there's so many different kind of products which are used in producing any product, and afterwards you ship it all over again. So if you concentrate more on local partners, you can also do a step towards sustainable and eco-design products.
When you will be able to have complete oversight over your product's life cycle, and maybe is it through blockchain? How would that be attained?
The idea, or I don't want to go too much into detail on this because we're working on it right now, but the idea is to have everything done in the next 5 years. Right now we're working on products to get them, or that we are working on them, that they're finished. 60% of our products are 100% recycled, and 100% are free of bitumen, PVC, and latex. So it's easy to get them back into the process of recycling already. But to get it really circular and to have it it would be like the mono material product. Like this, it would be the easiest way to get it circular. And this will be in about 3 to 5 years, I guess.
That's why I'm a journalist. I can always sense when there's a story on the horizon. So I'd really like you guys who are with us today to ask us any questions. Do type them into the box as we go along. One of the things we started to talk about, Martina, is why a product wins or why it fails. And you mentioned a little bit about functionality. We've already talked about maybe some earlier iterations of eco-design weren't desirable enough. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? And is the consumer, and I hesitate to use the word consumer because I do think we're citizens first and foremost. I don't know what you think.
Yeah,
You like that?
Yeah.
Are we changing our desires? Because Daniel mentioned COVID-19 crisis. Can you see that having an impact on what we want?
Yeah. Yes. First of all, I would say that yes, as you mentioned, we are citizens. Consumer, yes, I've never thought about that, but actually, citizens is a better word to identify ourselves. As we are not robots, I think that liability and accountability play really the most important role. Because as I said, we are becoming more informed about things. We are wiser. So transparency is really key. And when we check we do not stop at checking the labels itself. We are documenting, we surfing on the website. So we go deep and deep. So it's easy to say, yes, the product is recycled, but what's behind it? When I go to partners or to customers to tell the process that makes ECONYL regenerated nylon, I always say that the real added value of ECONYL is the story that stands behind. Because yes, everybody now is looking for stories to be told, story which sometimes are also emotional, and this is luckily our case. But yes, if a story at the end doesn't work because of a lack of transparency or some fail into the story itself, at the end it's not working. So that's why we used to make this training that we offer to our customers, because they need to tell the story in the proper way. They need to be ready if the customer at the end of the journey has some more specific question. If they ask deeper about the energy consumption, about the water consumption, about transportation, as Daniel mentioned, because yes, ECONYL is a product which is made 100% of waste, such as fishing nets from aquaculture, fishing nets from the oceans collected by LTCs, all carpets. But don't forget that all this waste, it needs to be transferred to Slovenia, where we have our regeneration facility. So also transportation itself, of course, count as not well for the environment itself. But in our analysis and all the third parties analysis we are doing, it is considered, it is a count as well. So you see, now I can tell you about the transportation, water consumption, because I'm talking about that every day. But I know that also us as citizens are ready to ask questions like this.
Telling the story of the product, and because this is your expertise, could you give us any examples where you think it's been told really well, or any tips or strategies how we can tell these stories better? Because as you say, a lot of consumers, citizens, shoppers are not ready to hear the whole life cycle analysis. So where does it work best?
Yes. Well, of course, in our case, it's easy because this is a very special story where the waste is not the end, but the beginning. ECONYL is a nylon, a regenerated nylon, and you see, we prefer to use the word regeneration instead of the word recycling, because when people hear the word recycling, they immediately think about something bad quality, second choice. With the word regeneration, we really mean that we are able to give a second life to the product. Because even if it is coming from waste, it has exactly the same properties, qualities, and performance as the nylon coming from fossil material. And this is basically, this is the story. Of course, thanks to LTCs and thanks to partners like Object Carpet, we can really tell the story from our ingredient, go a step back with LTCs that helps us in collecting part of the waste we are using in the process. And with partners like Object Carpet, we can really show where this ingredient, because at the end, ECONYL is an ingredient, can be used for producing beautiful, in this case, carpet flooring, where you can see there is no more the barrier, the limit between sustainability and beauty, between sustainability and creativity. And this is what I most like about ECONYL and what I most like about the story that I used to tell.
Oh.
Sorry, carry on, Daniel.
No, I want to say it from waste to design. That's such a nice story, yeah. And I really love the idea Aquafil created, also combined with the organization Healthy Seas to create awareness of a big problem which we have in the world. And they offer directly a solution with the regenerated yarn made of ocean plastics, and which brings then waste to design, and at the same time they clean up the ocean, save resources, and especially save lives. That's, I think, something which is one of the most important things when you see the pictures you get from Healthy Seas about animals who are trapped into that old nets.
What was one of the breakthrough moments that you have had as a company?
I would say what I told in the beginning. It was like this workshop we had 5 years ago, and there we made a lot of, or we had a lot of ideas which we already brought on the road. First of all, the change of the backing system, the change of polyamide to 100% recycled polyamide for all new products, and as well, like on the holistic approach, bringing like this new building up where we are now working in, which is completely built up on a sustainable and healthy idea.
Very exciting to see that come to life, all of those different elements to actually form. We've got some questions here, guys. Some of them are people looking for advice. So this one is from Rosie. For small startup brands, how do we go about making our brand circular when all the materials that are suitable are blends of fabrics? So 80% RPT, 20% elastane, that's given as an example. Is there a way of recycling these materials? I think that's a very good question. I don't know who'd like to speak to that. Martine?
Interesting question, and she's right, actually. Especially talking about textile industry, and I don't know, it pops up in my mind the swimsuits example. It's quite difficult nowadays because the material correct are blended together. So we have, for example, nylon 82% and the rest, which is lycra or another fiber. And when materials are blended together, it's difficult to separate and afterwards to recycle. Consider that we are working on that. I mean, we are investing in R&D to find a way to do that. But what you, as together in collaboration with partners, what we can do is trying to reduce the percentage of the other X material used in the composition in order to, as Aquafil, to be able to recover and then recycle without separate the fabric. But it's really a journey and we are not there yet.
Daniel, you mentioned monomers before, so yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you as well. It's a really a journey, a challenge, as well, as we were used over years to have a mixture of a lot of materials, and to now find ways how you can get really single materials. In the best case would be to use from the beginning just one material, or you think about how you can like separate materials to then recycle them as well separately on the next step. So these are like the two ways, but it's not easy, and it's a process, a journey.
Okay, I think we'll sort of come back to that. Thank you so far. We've got a couple of questions here for ECONYL. Martina, can you tell us how better we can make available the ghost nets that we collect underwater to be delivered to Slovenia from the Maldives?
Well, another interesting questions. Let's say that we started with LTCs working on specific areas, like, for example, the Mediterranean area, the Adriatic, and the North Sea. We are receiving really a lot of questions such yours. I mean, helping to collect other ghost nets, ghost gear around the world, because actually there are more than we can think. Okay, the amount of nets abandoned in the oceans everywhere in the world are, believe me, huge. We are working on this. We are trying to find other partners, and also LTCs is trying to understand if they can, let's say, enlarge the collaboration. So if you can write us an email, we will investigate and find out a way to maybe collect the nets also from Maldives, which is a beautiful and amazing place.
Is there any possibility, you spoke before about the transport emissions of bringing nets to Slovenia. Could you ever see a way that you would be able to have more localized regeneration facilities, or is that just not possible?
Well, it's very difficult because the chemical plant and the chemical facilities is huge, and we've done a lot of investment in terms of money and work as well in rebuilding, readapting, let's say, the facility that we have in Slovenia, which was an already existing facility, but we needed to adapt in order to regenerate this waste. So for the time being, it's not something we're working on, let's say.
Phil, but do you have any insight into, I mean, it is difficult, isn't it, when places do not have an industrialized infrastructure? All of this waste creates an issue, and it is possible that a lot of areas are just unseen in this, if we call it the plastic pandemic. Is there any project that you've seen that you think is helpful, or anything that you want to add to this part of the conversation?
I think that the project Healthy Seas is doing is not only like cleaning the seas by bringing out fisher nets. They also do like beach cleanings and things like that. I think everything what anybody could do, even if you just walk on the beach and like pick up some plastics, it could help. I think if everybody works together, that could help a lot. But I also see that it's for Healthy Seas. There's so many plastics and nets in Europe which they can collect right now. So the plant has enough nets to produce like new materials or new polyamide. But it would be really nice to have a whole system all around the world where you can collect the nets and bring it then directly to the plant, and it produce a new nylon. That should be a vision for the future. I hope so, and I think Giulio has that kind of vision.
Who has talked to me before about the fact that the registration of fishing nets and the responsibility of the fishing industry around fishing nets. And when you think of somewhere, we can't, I suppose, expect Healthy Seas to be the solution for the pollution. Yes. And when we have an area like the Maldives that is, on the front line of, a number of crises, including, climate crises, is really feeling the front of that, surely legislatively, we should prioritize those seas in terms of holding an industry to account for those nets. But that's a different conversation, perhaps. Because we're getting close on time, I'm just going to plow through some more of these questions. Martina, well, two things here. I'm going to give you a big compliment. Raphael has saying that that Raphael's very impressed by Gucci Off the Grid and their sustainable collection with a very awesome use of ECONYL, and what a great partnership that is. On the other hand, Ruth Santos would like you to sort of justify ECONYL a little bit. How does it compare with standard polyamide or recycled polyamide, water consumption, energy consumption? How can they track the raw material waste used to produce ECONYL? Is there any more transparency? Do you publish all of this kind of information?
Absolutely, yes. We have actually we just released 2 weeks ago the updated version of the EPD, that stands for Environmental Product Declaration, where you can find all these, let's say, environmental benefits, the data that we were talking about, also in terms of global warming potential, for example. We made this LCA analysis, this life cycle analysis of a product that compares the production of standard nylon and the production of ECONYL nylon. Doing this analysis, we can state that in terms of GWP, we have, producing ECONYL, we have a reduction of 90% compared of the GWP compared with the standard process, let's say. So yes, everything is available, and well, now it's difficult because of the COVID, of course, but we open the doors of our facilities. Daniel himself and also Object Carpet as an organization, but also LTCs. And I don't know if you, Lucy, you ever been to Slovenia to visit Aquafil, but we open the doors of the facility so you can really see the amount of waste we are collecting. You can even smell it. And then, yes, you can see the entire process. So a lot of transparency, believe me, also because we are in the eye of the storm.
Been here yet, but I have been on many trips when I have
Yeah.
witnessed the nets coming up from the deep, from the ocean, which is kind of incredible. Some of those trips have been interesting and very rocky on the support boat, let me tell you. Anyway, that's a whole different issue. We've got a question. I think these are going to have to be the last round of questions. Sorry, but a couple of people would like to know also about ECONYL product is about closing that loop. So at what point are you going to be able to get products made of ECONYL back into the system? So in effect, you're doing, I guess, polymer to polymer recycling.
Should I answer that? Or?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I think this is the biggest challenge, as I told you, to create products which you afterwards get separated again after the use of the products, and then to bring the pure polyamide back to the regeneration plant. And that's what we already did. We avoided all kind of integrates which could harm this process. But we hope so that the products we sold, they will last for the next 10, 15 years. So they will come back earliest in 10, 15 years to that process. But they are already ready for that process.
Martina, what about swimwear? Because a lot of people are interested in specifically in swimwear. I get the sense that a lot of people are designers here today.
Yes, as I said, a swimsuit, in order to be recycled and put again, for example, in our regeneration process, needs to have a minimum quantity of elastomer or lycra or whatever. So for the time being, I can tell you more about Napapiri, which is the first ever example of circularity and closing the loop in textile design. We are very proud of this collaboration. And basically Napapiri, I don't know if you know the brand, they make raincoat and jackets for the winter, mainly. They've just launched last year, it was 2019, this is the first ever jacket, 100% regenerated at the end of the usage. So you can buy a jacket, it is the Infinity model, it costs about 600 euros, 700 euros, and it is entirely made both from ECONYL and from nylon. So the trims are made of nylon, some parts of the jacket with ECONYL, made with ECONYL. So at the end of the usage, when you decided you are sick of using this jacket, you can give back to the shop, and then they give you back the money to be used inside the shop to buy some other Napapiri articles. And this jacket goes directly into the regeneration process without separation, because it is 100% made of a mono material. So this is the direction we would like to be, and we are working with partners like Object Carpet to do this, and this is really the future.
Oh, so we have a question from a smaller, I assume they're smaller bag brand here today, saying that they would like to be part of something like this, but Is that possible, or when will that be possible? Even if they were making their whole product out of nylon, as you described, that could be dropped back into the process, would they have to set up a sort of special partnership with you? Or will there be a take back service at some point?
Yes, correct, Lucy. At some point, there must be a take-back point or process that needs to be very well managed, because believe me that most of the take-back program that you see nowadays in the shops are not really in place. Effective, yes. So, of course, we are more than happy if you can contact us, if we can go through the project together, and if the partnership, the collaboration can be settled, we are really more than welcome to do it.
That is where we're going to have to leave it, because we've already gone a little bit over time. Sorry about that, but it's such a fascinating discussion. I'd love to say thank you to our brilliant panelists, to Martina and Daniel, and thank you, Jenny, as well, for making this happen. Thank you, Healthy Seas. And I think you should take Martina up on her offer if you have anything that you would like to know further to this. I'm sure both our panelists would be happy, to a degree, for you to get in touch. Yes, Daniel.
I will leave my email address as well. So if there's any questions, please feel free to contact me.
That is very kind of you and very, very useful. Yeah, make sure that you've noted those down, and I'm sure that everybody is also available on some form of social media. Is that correct? Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, so with that, I'm going to thank you all for coming, and thank you for a really great discussion, guys, on designing with the planet in mind, and some really, really interesting, particularly breakthrough moments, which I feel a lot more hopeful at the end of this conversation than I did at the beginning of it, which I think is always a good thing. We have more webinars coming up with Healthy Seas in September, so keep an eye out for those. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Lucy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.